Stalin is a pretty good reflection of what you do when you go full socialist. So, but I'm still happy that he came out and said it, because he's moving the Overton window. We're often talking about the Overton window of like what you're allowed to say. I'm actually really happy overall. I think this is overall a positive development, because suddenly you have a famous senator coming out and saying, hey, I want to ban the data centers. So even if it just triggers a bunch of people who are opposed to him, even people with legitimate comments saying like, well, this is going to slow down economic growth. This is going to have a bunch of negative consequences, which, they're partially right. Even if it triggers that, I'm actually happy, because I believe triggering the discussion and getting the AI moratorium discussion front and center so that it can be refined is the number one point of leverage we can do. That's what we try to do on Warning Shots. That's what I try to do on Doom Debates. That's what Michael tries to do on Lethal Intelligence. So I think this is a great development.
And yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to like about it. When he talks about it not being democratic, I think that gets at a core theme we like to talk about in this, which is the idea of consent, and that these are, 6 unelected profiteers who are making decisions that affect every living being on the planet without their consent. And so all of this is being done entirely undemocratically, non-consensually. Michael, does that do anything for you? That sort of idea that everyone deserves a say in this? And, if you're going to put this box in my neighborhood that's going to take all of our jobs and take our water and run up our energy bills, we're actually going to have something to say about it.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I agree with Liron that we don't want to be communists, but at the same time, he's not saying, stop the data centers, keep the data centers, keep the AI that we have today. But if you go 50 times bigger than this, it's like already we're so close to like AGI, right? So at that point, it's a pragmatic lever to slow things down. It's essentially a call to hit pause on new hyperscale data centers. And then, okay, is there any consent, as you're asking? No, there isn't. So, I mean, these data centers are just being built, and they will bring into existence something most likely uncontrollable. So yeah, I mean, what can we do? We can keep talking about it. But what he's proposing is it's a pragmatic approach to maybe do something about it. It's not perfect. By the way, China might continue, right? So that's another issue.
If you say, I want to have a meeting at the high school to talk about extinction risk, you're going to have about 3 people show up. If you say, I want to have a meeting at the high school because they're building a data center behind the mall next to the school, the whole school is going to show up. So
exactly. It's indirectly it makes sense, right?
So we have to meet the people where they are now. Like the risks of harm from AI are no longer theoretical. They are real now. And I think we need to be open to hearing people and meeting them where they're at. All right. Topic number 2. Let's talk about our guy Zuck. Meta famously digging in on being open source, which is like, hey, why shouldn't we put the plans to nuclear bombs and F-16s in every kid's garage so they can go out and make them? That's the democratic way to do it. And then about face, no, actually, we're not going to do that. I didn't support open source to begin with, but not being a technical person, I don't really. It's a little bit above my head. Michael, what was your thoughts about Zuck and about face here?
By the way, I sent a link if someone can share the screen because it's quite funny. So, Mark Zuckerberg is directing Meta to pivot away from its open source AI strategy, shifting focus towards proprietary, and this marks a significant reversal for Meta. So Zuck's pivot kind of exposed him as the ultimate flip-flopper, right? So 1 minute he's spreading the gospel of open source AI like it's the key to saving the world from tech overlords. He's framing Llama as this noble crusade against closed shops like. But as soon as Llama 4 tanks and he's like staring at the red ink, he bails, and then now he's starting dumping billions into proprietary stuff and basically telling open source crowds, oops, sorry. It's like, dude, were you ever really into it for the ideals, or was it just a slick PR move while it's lasted? And honestly, this is opportunistic vibes, right? It's very classic Silicon Valley. It feels like genuinely. So it's like cold business moves. Open source work for hype, rival baiting, and it was winning in some ways, but it's also classic Zuck. He has a history of major pivots from the chaotic early Facebook era and all that. So it makes you wonder if he ends up being the who controls superintelligence, what is his ethics, and how he's going to be steering it. So there's a lot to unpack here. So
yeah, and Liron, from like a Silicon Valley view, or like the acceleration bro view, there was like a lot of aura around open source. It felt like there was just sort of like this principled stand for openness.
Well, I mean, it is really funny. As you guys have been saying, they made it sound like a principled stand, but it was so clearly just their business strategy. There's this concept of commoditizing your complement. So the idea is that Meta didn't have an advantage in developing the most powerful AI, or they weren't leaning into that. They're like, our advantage, the way we make money is, the social feeds, like getting ads in front of people, basically. And so this AI technology, the companies that are selling AI technology, if they're capturing some of the profits, what we can do is we can commoditize that. We can just open source it. That was their original strategy. And so you can just run this anywhere. So you can't make that much profit on this kind of AI, which means that more of the profit will then flow to what we've captured. So that's the idea, is if you erode your competitors' profits, then you end up capturing more value because there's like a certain amount of total value throughout the whole stack of different products. So it's smart as a business strategy that they were doing that. But then the problem is their open source model was falling farther and farther behind the top models. And they're like, well, if we're going to make a heavy investment catching up, we need to we need to make more money on the investment. So we can't just make this huge investment. Like the investment, it's now like $1 trillion. It's not even like billions of dollars. So we need to lock this down and go serious. So it's not like Mark Zuckerberg was ever like this huge open source champion. He entirely just did it, as you guys were saying, just as a way to help the profits of Meta in the short term. And yeah, now they're in a very interesting place because they've got some catching up to do. I just saw some reporting that Alexander Wang, the head of AI from Scale AI, that got hired, he's just been pushing for like, guys, we have to get to the frontier.